All right, so I was just talking, like I say, when we was talking about No One Gets Out, one of my favorite songs on the album is a song called Crawl to the Altar, but it's not actually one of your songs, is it?
Well, no, it was adopted by us. We talked about this earlier too, that we cover other local bands. Um, Tim Wright, who was the second guitar player when we wrote all those songs, had a band called Erebus, and Tim was our guitar player. So when we brought him into the band, we loved Erebus would open for Halloween sometimes, and their shows were always great. And that song always stuck in my head. And I said, "Well, hey, let's record it." So we did.
So I mean, I was listening to the Erebus demo on YouTube, and I thought you were singing on it, Brian. It's the guy just
No,
sounds like you.
yeah, no, that's Brian Bennett. I had to kick myself in the ass to get up to those notes like him.
It's a brilliant album. Like I say, you did Victims of the Night. That was another fantastic. I'm like Horror Fire, which is even a stronger album, even heavier.
Man, that album that actually started. We recorded that twice as well.
Yeah.
That started. There was a period of time after like No One Gets Out and Vicious Demo. After that, Rick and Bill White came back for a short stint for a little while, and we wrote a few of those songs that are on Horror Fire with Rick and Bill.
Yeah, Ways of Man exist.
And
Well, Nobody's Home was an older song, but we do that too. We go back into our library of songs that never got recorded, and we pick a couple of gems and put them on our current albums. In fact, the album that we're working on now, there's a song called Rats and Rock Dogs that was like one of our oldest songs. And on Terrortory, Caught in the Webs was like so old. It was probably one of our first 10 songs
that was
ever.
before Don't Meddle with Evil.
Yeah.
But the later stuff on Horror Fire was like Fire Still Burns, The Seer. You know,
Great song.
that's when I was in a writing mode where I was detuning everything down to C. And those riffs seem to fit that kind of a tuning and groove.
I mean, I've got the original CD of Victims of the Night, but you rechanged the cover for that, didn't you? Made it into like the cover behind me, which looks a lot better.
Yeah.
Was that production on that album different as well when you did the artwork?
You know, there's something about that album. I think it was cursed from the start. Um, there's parts on that record that I literally cringe when when I listen to it back because we had a error on the drum tracks when we were recording the drum tracks.
Well, no, what it was, Bill White wanted to experiment with, Simmons drums were becoming like a big thing at the time. And we had saw a magazine ad for this kick-ass looking electronic drum set that had like devil faces on it. And he was like, "Oh man, that'd be badass." And he goes, "I always wanted to play some electronic drums." And we were in the studio working on Victims of the Night. And Pete Bankert, the engineer that was working on the record with us, he goes, "I got a guy that will, give me a really good deal on a rental." And so we brought an electronic drum kit and Bill played some of the songs on it.
Well, actually, no, he played it on live drums, and they were triggered into it was like a head thing.
Right.
It was a trigger. So his real drums were actually on there, and then what they were going to do was they were going to trigger them to these like kick-ass sounding drums. You could get, for instance, a John Bonham kick drum and a Phil Collins snare and Neal Peart toms.
Yeah, it was like early sampling experiments. And what happened was the live drums got erased, and we were stuck with the electronic drums. And that's what ended up on the record.
So how did it sound different then, Brian? How did it sound different, the original drum sound? But you can hear it in your head still, can't you? Think, God, what happened?
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, they sounded like the drums on Don't Meddle with Evil. It was the same kit, same drummer. But again, he wanted to experiment with triggering and samples, and and it just backfired on us.
And that actually, the error didn't occur till after we were already done with all the recording and all our equipment was out of the studio. There was no way to go back unless, and at that point, I don't think we could have just went back and added drums in where the mistakes were. We'd have to have done that whole album from scratch. And that's also part of the reason why there was such a time lapse in between Don't Meddle with Evil and Victims of the Night, because they were supposed to be a year apart. They would have been a year.
Yeah, they were recorded a year apart.
So, we should have had that album out 2 years after the first one. And between that and there was
we had a spec deal with the studio. Again, we had no budget to make a record. And so they were going to let us have unlimited recording time. And because we were spooked by the 30 hours and go. So we were like, unlimited recording, we can take as long as we need. But the thing was, we had to go in off-peak hours. So we were recording at like 5 a.m. We're recording at like 7 a.m, and the neighbors are mowing their lawn, and you can hear the lawnmower when we're cutting, tracks, and trains are going by. And so it was really hard. And then right in the middle of it, we had finished recording all the tracks, but before we started to get into the mixing process, Pete, the engineer, was also the bass player in a band called Weapons, and they got to go on a world tour. And so our project came to a screeching halt. And the owner of the studio, who apparently didn't agree to the spec deal of us paying for the recording 90 days after the release of the album, he suddenly wanted the money now or we don't go any further. So those tapes were locked up in the basement of the studio for like 9 years. And we did Vicious Demo and No One Gets Out, in the meantime. And then finally, Victims was released, 11 years later.
Wow.
And Rick and Pete mixed it the best they could, but with all the errors and the electronic drums, we left 4 songs off of that. I Scream was supposed to be on there, Need to Make You Rock. Come and Get It, which was a track that we did with West Beach from the Plasmatics. Halloween Night was supposed to be on there.
It made it on there, didn't
it? Well, it made it on there as a hidden track later, like on a re-release. When we put it out with that cover that's behind him, we put a demo version of Halloween Night on there. But yeah, there was like 4 or 5 songs that didn't even make the record because we were having such a hard time trying to get it to sound right.
Right then. So I'm going to talk about this new album that's coming out. What is the title for this album? Do you have a title yet for it?
Yeah, it's tentatively called What Evil Fears. And I came up with a really kick-ass idea for the album cover. And when I suggested it to George, he was like, ooh, I don't know about that, because it was right at the beginning of COVID. And everything that we saw in the news, I don't know how it was in the UK, but in America, every news story had the COVID molecule. They'd talk about COVID-19 and there would be the molecule up in the little cube of, just like how we are right now over your shoulder, there would be the COVID molecule. And I'm like, what evil fears? COVID. I go, let's put Jack's face on the COVID molecule and that'll be the cover. But at the time, it's like, it was so controversial. Everybody was wearing the masks and scared to death and people were dying. And George was like, I don't know if that would be a good idea. But now that everything is how it is, I think.
But then again, now that molecule in 5 years will be pretty much dated.
Yeah.
Well,
so we don't know what the cover is going to be, but that was the kick-ass idea.
Did you have any other titles for the album?
Ben wanted to do it like he wanted to take your shirt off and have a fan on him. And he wanted to look like Fabian in the 80s.
Did you have any other Did you have any other titles for this album then? Or was that it, Brian? Was that the only title you had?
Well, that's going to be the title. We just aren't sure on the artwork.
Right, okay. So how many songs do you actually have wrote for this new album? Is TJ going to produce it again?
Yeah, it was 13. Yep. Lucky number 13.
Yeah, 13,
And maybe a bonus track.
maybe.
There's two older songs, Rats and Rock Dogs and Kill Driver, were from the early Halloween days. And then we wrote a bunch of new songs. There's a song called The Horror Fire, a throwback to the Horror Fire album. There's the title track, What Evil Fears. Some of them still have working titles, so we don't even know for sure.
And I thought we had like 3 or 4 of them were titled Ben song.
George's song,
Yeah, George
Ben's
Riff,
song.
George Riff too. Yeah.
So is the album pretty much wrote them now? Is it just got, oh, you got the lyrics to do still? Or the music wrote for the album?
The drums are recorded and the guitar parts are, arranged, and they just, like, we got sidetracked with this 40th anniversary thing. We got live shows and whatnot. And, of course, the years of COVID slowed us down, but now, these three need to get in the studio and get all the music tied together, and then I'll get in there and do the vocals. We have, scratch tracks, and the arrangements are pretty solid, where it's going to go.
Right then,
But
so it was produced.
We're notorious for recording albums twice, so by the time it comes out, it might be something completely different.
Ben actually did some scratch bass tracks, and I'm a little embarrassed now that I have to go in and actually record bass tracks because his scratch tracks are pretty good.
And TJ was temporarily out of the band because he was focusing on Salvation's End. And so when we started writing the album, TJ wasn't with us at the time. He just recently came back into the fold. So
We're reworking a few things.
yeah, we're reworking a couple things to bring him in and include him.
Right. So is this album going to be released this year then?
That might be a little optimistic. Well, we're hesitant to put a date on it just because something always seems to get in the way.
Every time we do, it seems to fall off the ladder. And then you start climbing again.
Yeah, we say it's going to come out and then we just jinx ourselves. So it's going to come out. We'll leave it at that.
All right.
And we're going to re-release the whole catalog of all the stuff. We're going to, Vicious Demo was supposed to be an album called Vicious Demonstration. And there's like 5 other songs that were supposed to go on that. So that's going to be another project that we want to tie up a lot of loose ends. There's a lot of great songs, a lot of great material. And with this core lineup, we're in the perfect position to put out a lot of music.
We also have, we're recording tomorrow at Keep It True.
Yeah, it's going to be live in Germany, Halloween, Keeping It True.
And we have another live album that was recorded in 88.
88 with Rick and Bill. It's Don't Meddle with Evil live.
And it's the entire Don't Meddle with Evil. And John Drenning from Crimson Glory came into town and they brought a mobile recording studio. So he engineered all of that. And on top of that, there is a live DVD that goes along with it.
5-camera shoot of that show.
So,
oh, wow.
It would be nice to do a box set and bookend the 88 release along with the 2023 release.
So is tomorrow going to be recorded as a video DVD as well as audio?
Well, the festival does audio and video anyway, but we got permission from Oliver and Tariq to release it as an album. But the video, apparently they're streaming the show tomorrow, and then
really
they usually put out a DVD of the show.
I've got some of the old DVDs with you guys on it.
Yep.
My friend of mine's doing sound for the Keep It True festival. Jackie Lehman.
Oh.
He works with Saxon.
Nice.
So I said, hey. So I'm looking forward to seeing you guys live if you ever come to the UK.
Well, we were in London one time on a flight connection, and we were there for 20 hours, just long enough that we couldn't leave our luggage on a plane. We had to get a taxi and stay there long enough to do nothing. Sit in a room. We ran down to the Tower of London just to see it and found out the tube was shutting down. like 10 minutes after we got off of it. So we went, oh, there it is. And we got back on and tried to figure out how to get back to our hotel. But we definitely want to come there. We need the invite. Somebody needs to bring us there.
So what special effects are you going to have tomorrow at the Keep It True Festival? Are you going to have the grave like you do, I've seen in the past?
We really can't travel with that because these festivals, they fly us over, they put us up in the hotel, they transport us to and from the gig and feed us dinner. But they don't have it in the budget for us to bring the stage show with us. So
when we toured here in 2012, Volker, the promoter, actually got stage props for us to use and had backdrops made, or a backdrop. I would love to bring a show over here, but it's not cost effective. We wouldn't be able to afford it.
I packed as much crap in my suitcase as I possibly could. I've got what, 2, 4, 6. I got about 8 or 9 masks with me of my creepy friends, and we have some tapestries in our backdrop. And I'm doing my typical makeup, and so hopefully that'll be showing up. But if not, the music is going to definitely carry us because I got a solid band here.
Excellent. Do you know, an actual fantastic gig for you guys would be Alice Cooper headlining, King Diamond, and you guys, and just call it Trick or Treat Tour. That would be a fucking awesome tour.
Awesome.
I just put out into the universe on Facebook last week that I don't know why Halloween has not taken us on tour with them, because that would truly be a what do they call it? Pumpkins Unite.
Yeah.
Like, how did they not ask us to go on tour? They know about us. We know about them. There's no, no hidden. But that would be great. And we don't know yet. We're playing a festival in Mexico City in December. And we heard from a very reliable source that Old Black Eyes is going to be on the festival, but it's not been announced yet. So we're crossing our fingers that our information was not incorrect. But that would be a really cool bucket list item to play with Alice.
Along with Queensryche, KK's Priest, Leather Leon.
Wasp. Yeah, we're definitely playing with Wasp, KK's Priest, Armored Saint, Leather Leon,
Hellstar, I think.
Gordon, Hellstar.
Yeah.
Visigoth, who we're playing with tomorrow night, is going to be on that.
We're looking forward to seeing those guys sit.
Burning Witches, who's one of TJ's favorites.
I wonder why.
Camelot's on it. But yeah, they have a third announcement coming out, and hopefully Alice is on that.
But I definitely think King Diamond, Halloween, and Alice Cooper will be an awesome Trick or Treat tour.
In the middle of our Crimson Glory tour in 1989, we opened for King in Flint, Michigan.
Wow. Well,
yeah, I was Crimson Glory had a date in Canada, and we didn't do the Canada thing because of work visas and stuff. So on the day that we had off, we jumped on the King Diamond show. It was
Devil's Night of 1989. And the very next night we played on Halloween night in Milwaukee with Crimson Glory in a house we were like in the kitchen of this house. The stage was just like in a room, not much bigger than the room we're in this hotel room. It was so tiny. It was the weirdest Halloween night show we ever played, because normally it's a big production with, theater stage and all the props. And
the first night of that tour, that when we jumped on, we drove to the East Coast.
We drove all the way to Buffalo, New York, and they wouldn't let us play.
Yeah, the show.
Well, they played, but they wouldn't let us play.
I remember following the bus going. It might have been after, but yeah, we drove all the way out there, and I was like, no.
I remember arguing with the guy.
Yeah, the venue wouldn't.
The venue wouldn't let us play, even though we were on the tour. And then that happened again. Something similar happened in St. Louis. There was like a local top 40 metal, hair metal band that like everybody knew in St. Louis. It was like their local big time band. And we were on the tour with Crimson Glory. We were their support act.
And they were added to the show.
They were added to the show. And the next thing we know, we had to split the bill. You know, we had to let them play direct support to Crimson Glory, or the venue was going to cancel the whole show. And so we had to go on first and let them have their little ego trip or whatever. I don't even remember what their name was. And they were horrible. I mean, you know, after we slayed it that night, we came out
Because we were pissed.
yeah, we were breathing fire. So we came out, it was probably the best show on the whole tour. And then they had to go up and follow that with like, you know, like sleazy, like cheese metal. And then Crimson Glory. But it was a pain in the ass for Crimson Glory because we were sharing backline. So it's like, you know, we had to like get out of the way and they had to rewire stuff, and it was a big pain in the ass. But yeah, that was twice on that tour that we didn't, you know, get to do what we were supposed to do.
Yeah, somewhere down the line, our manager, who had passed away since, he ended up with a key to their room.
No, he found the lead singer's ID.
Oh,
the dude lost his driver's license, and our road manager, found this dude's license. So he booked a hotel room in Dallas the last night of the tour in this guy's name. And then everybody on the road crew, the two bands, proceeded to Led Zeppelin style trash this hotel room, which was in this lead singer's name from the St. Louis band. So that was great.
Well, I'd like to thank you guys for doing this interview. I wish you all the best tomorrow. Hopefully one day we'll meet. Do you have anything to say to the people watching this on YouTube?
Ben's in another band too.
Everyone plug your stuff. Well,
Go quick.
well, wow, I'm really on the spot.
They're called Occlusion.
Yeah, OCCLUSION. It's like prog rock stuff. And then TJ's got Salvation Zen.
Yeah.
And then Brian has Ass.
And I have Halloween.
Well, you also have the Sleepy Hollow thing, right? That you were doing with Rick.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you have the album.
That was Ichabod Crane.
Yeah, I have this other thing I did, but it's not really worth talking about.
Ben is also in Acoustic Hell with me, and we also do a Scorpions tribute called BFT's The Zoo.
Yeah.
Well, have a good show tomorrow. I wish I was there. I'm going to watch it. If it's live on the internet, I'm going to watch it.
Yeah, it should
awesome.
be. And check
Definitely.
out that YouTube channel. I'll send you the link.
So sleep well, guys. Thanks again. And I'll be in touch and I'll send you this interview when it's online.
All right.
Cool.
Peace.
Thanks
Take
again.
Keep in
care.
touch, guys. Thank you. Be safe.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Prost.
Cheers.
Bye.